There's a lunar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio on May 16th. It's making a square to Saturn, the planet of restriction, as well as making a trine to Mars, the planet of action, and a trine to Neptune, the planet of vision. So it's likely you're in the middle of a big decision, and that's what we're going to talk about. Hi everyone, I'm Donna Stellhorn, your practical astrologer, here to talk to you today about the lunar eclipse. This is on May 16th. It's at 25 degrees of Scorpio. We're going to do a short overview and then we're going to go sign by sign. It's the full moon and it happens to also be a lunar eclipse. It means that the sun is in Taurus and the moon is in Scorpio, and they are making a T-square to Saturn. Now, Saturn is the planet of restrictions and feeling like you're not good enough, and the solution of Saturn is if you work hard and you collect together skills and abilities, then you become the authority, and so you no longer feel like you're less than. You know that you are somebody who can handle what the universe throws at you. Now, just because you are a person who is gaining skills and has experience doesn't mean that difficulties don't crop up from time to time. Difficulties are here to help us grow, and so we're in a growth period. Now, the world may be giving us very dire warnings and telling us that this huge storm is coming and that we need to batten down the hatches and all of that. But in truth, the solution is always to believe in ourselves, and that you look at your life and say, what do I need to prepare? How can I be more self-reliant, but also how can I build a network of people that you support and they support you? So this is about, stopping for a moment in your very busy life and saying to yourself, where do I need to prepare, and who can I rely on, and who's relying on me? Now, with this eclipse, there are two helpful energies. Well, they can be helpful, and so we're going to talk about that. So there's Mars, and Mars is the planet of action, and so Mars is that point where you are thinking it's time to make a decision. So in any eclipse, whether it's a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, something has come to a point where the pressure is too much, where you are in an emotional state where you want to make a change. And so that's where this energy of Mars can be very helpful, because Mars is that point where you say, now is the day. Now's the day I'm going to make a change. Now, Mars is sitting in conjunction with Neptune, and they are making a trine to this lunar eclipse. And so Neptune is the planet of vision, but it is also the planet of illusion and escapes. And so you can use this combination to help you have a new vision of the future, or you can use it to try to escape into the endless, entertainment and media that exists today. So this particular lunar eclipse is in Scorpio, and in Scorpio, amongst other things, is about power. And so one of the things that may be going through your mind is who has the power in the situation that you're in. And I don't know the specific situation you're in, that is individual to you, but it is also what is showing up in your chart. And so when we go sign by sign, then you can see maybe the area of where this decision needs to be made. Although you probably know already, because you are on a spiritual path, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video. So this Scorpio eclipse is about power, and so it's first determining who has the power in the situation, and how, if the power is somewhere besides yourself, how you can bring the power back to you. And there's some examples that we can give. Maybe you don't like your job at the moment and you would like to quit. And so perhaps you feel that your boss has all the power in the situation of telling you what to do and where to go, and they hold your paycheck, etc. But you have the power to leave that job. Now, if you say to yourself that you don't have the power, maybe you need to work on your skills, maybe you need to work on your resume, maybe you need to get more of a support system around you of colleagues in your industry so that you can find other openings. So this is where you can take action to shift the power back to yourself. Or perhaps you have a landlord and you feel that a landlord has all the power of where you're going to live and what they're going to charge, etc. But you have the power to be able to move if you want. And so if you're not feeling you have that power, then maybe you have to look at shifting that power back to you. And perhaps that means that you need to declutter and have less stuff so a move is less arduous, or maybe that you need to adjust your finances so that you are putting more aside in case you do need to move. So there's all of these types of shifts, and I'm not saying by any means these are easy, but it is something that these Taurus Scorpio eclipses are helping us become aware of. Now, the blessing and the curse of living in this wondrous age is unlimited entertainment. You know, when I was growing up, there would actually be summer times where there was nothing on TV. We didn't get that many channels anyway, and I could actually be bored. And it's been a very long time since I've been bored, because there is now in this world unlimited entertainment. And when we see this Mars conjunct Neptune in Pisces, making that trine to the lunar eclipse, what we have is either a way to find your vision and move towards that. And as you have a vision, then the universe and you are co-creating, and that brings you opportunities, or you can use that Mars-Neptune to escape into an endless rabbit hole of movies and television and video games. And whether those are, you know, something that makes you laugh or something that makes you cry or something that makes you scared, it's still not looking at your individual situation and taking the steps that are required to shift the power back to you. The gift of all of this unlimited entertainment is it also gives us access to unlimited knowledge. So if you do need to gain skills, you know, tech skills, skills for connecting to people who may not be in your neighborhood or in your house, ways to find groups of like-minded people so that you can support each other. Doing these things shifts the power back to you. And it's interesting because we are seeing across the nation now little unions popping up here and there as a reminder of when we join together as individuals, we become stronger. And that is, find a group of people that you are willing to support, who are willing to support you, and you are stronger. Also with this chart, Mercury is retrograde from May 10th to June 3rd. And so this means that there is going to be some disruption in communication. Mercury is in Gemini, and so it's in its own sign. Gemini rules communication by phone, voice, paperwork. All of those things can really get disrupted with Mercury retrograde. Oh, and vehicles too. So just be aware that there can be delays, miscommunications. If you're waiting for a check, if you're trying to buy a car, all of these things take more time. And by the way, myself and another astrologer, Tammy Margara, wrote a little book on Mercury retrograde. And so there's a link in the description where you can check that out. So as I talked about with the solar eclipse, there is a storm coming, but you have been through a lot of storms. So this is just a time for you to say, what's working in my life, what's not working in my life, and make some decisions about what's not working. And that is that oftentimes you know deep down the decision you need to make or the changes you need to make. And yes, it's possible that, you know, things, when you do your pros and cons list, everything is pretty equal. And so you may say to yourself, I'm not really sure which way to go on the decision. And that's okay. That's why I make these videos. That's why we have access to astrology, so that we can, you know, get some guidance in that area of decision making. And so when we go sign by sign, we are going to talk about where we see the blocks and where we see the help and the opportunities coming in. So this eclipse is 25 degrees of Scorpio, and I give a 5-degree orb. That means if you have any planets from 20 degrees to 29 degrees, or if you have a planet at 0 degrees, then you are getting hit by this eclipse. And so you can, there's lots of different places where you can get a copy of your chart, or you can email me with your data and I will send you a copy of your chart. And just to let you know, we are doing tropical Western astrology in this video. If you know your rising sign, listen to that section. Also listen to your sun sign, and combining these two readings will give you a fuller picture of what's going on. If you want to look more in depth at your chart, I do readings. You can go to my website and find out about those, or you can send me an email. Also, if you have a moment, check out my books on Amazon, and I write columns on astrology.com, horoscope.com, and Conscious Community magazine, so you can check those out. And also, I'm finally going to get some classes going. I know I've been talking about this for a few months. I've just been super busy. So if you are interested in taking classes with me on beginning astrology, intermediate astrology, or on tarot, then just send me an email and I'll put you on the list for getting information. Okay, let's go sign by sign. Okay, Aries, you are doing this lunar eclipse in your area of resources, and so that's where you're needing to make your decision. So the moon says your decision is about where you can get resources or where you're putting the resources that you have. Now, the square from Saturn, which is the block, is telling you that you are very uncertain about the future, you don't know where things are going, and some of your friends are telling you either that your ideas won't work or that there's going to be less resources for you in the future. And your solution is that Mars and Neptune in your house of spirituality and your connection with the universe. And that is that through meditation and journaling and prayer that you can align yourself and co-create with the universe. So that is for you to write down your question and put it into your pillowcase so that you can dream the answer. It is also to sit quietly with your questions and let the universe give you ideas. And those ideas may not come immediately, but if you do a meditation, even just for 5 minutes in the morning, then you are going to get answers throughout the day. Now, this is also about seeing where you can help others, and that is to sit in meditation and think about all the different ways you can help friends and family right now, and as you do, you will get ideas for yourself. Now, when we look at love relationships, specifically new love, the sun is making a sextile to Mars, so there are opportunities. Now, the interesting thing is, because Mars is in your hidden house, it might mean that this new love and you are having a secret relationship, or that this person is somebody that you have dreamed about and thought about, and now you're actually meeting in person. And so there is an opportunity here. It's a sextile, so that means that you need to take some sort of action to make that happen. That is to reach out and contact this person, or to actually be visible out in the world, not just hide at home. Now, when it comes to your existing love relationship, Mars is not making an aspect with Venus. And so you are on two different tracks right now. And that is, maybe your partner is elsewhere, but actually looking at the chart, it's more like you're very busy and you're elsewhere, and your partner is knocking on the door trying to get your attention, but you're elsewhere. And so this is that even though the energies aren't lining up, they will line up in the future. So right now, just understand that the two of you are not necessarily on the same page. And so if you feel like your partner's not understanding you, it is true that they just don't understand where you're coming from. And you will have to shift the narrative or the communication to get some understanding. And most of that will take place outside this 2-week period. When we look at home and family, Mars is making a trine to the moon. And so there is the opportunity for family to come together so you can help each other and you can connect more deeply. So this is also that you might be sneaking away from your family at home to go see extended family. And I don't necessarily mean sneaking like you're not telling anybody and you're going in the dead of night, but more that, you might be saying, I'm going to put off some of my obligations or responsibilities for the moment so that I can go see an extended family member or go visit older relatives. And even if it just is an hour or two out of your day, it can really bring you some peace of mind and probably some answers. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Venus in Aries, which is your sign, and it's in your first house of confidence. You also have Uranus, North Node, and the Sun in your house of money. So you show money opportunities from several different places. Now, it's quite possible that this eclipse is bringing a decision about money. And maybe this is somewhere in lines of trying to decide whether to stick with something that seems like more of a sure thing or to take some sort of risk and do something that, is by nature risky, but also could give you much more in the future. And so this is the decision that you're trying to make, and this is why to do that meditation or to ask the universe for guidance. But since that Venus in your own sign is pulling money for you, that means the more confidence you have, the more you believe in yourself, the more money you're going to make. Now, when it comes to traditional investments, or money from a business or a family business, Venus is not making an aspect with Pluto. And so there is more energy around you working on the business and actually getting profits. And so you might be studying investments, might be looking at different, more traditional ways of investing and maybe doing some diversification and some dollar cost averaging while the markets are fluctuating, which they always do around eclipses. Plus we'll have Mercury retrograde coming up. So there's a lot of different aspects that to think about in that. And then when it comes to money derived from career, Venus is making a semi-sextile to Uranus, which, yes, is not the easiest of aspects, but at least it's an aspect. And so it does say that you have a possibility of making more money from your job over the next 2 weeks. It's not a huge amount, so maybe it's just getting a few more hours, maybe you get a very tiny bonus or some sort of prize for something you have done. You can ask your boss about getting more money, but there might be some delays, or if you get it, it will be less than you're wanting. So you may want to wait till this aspect and energy lines up better, which it will do in the future. And then when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that are highly leveraged or highly speculative, they are also things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going. So it's like you're doing a lot on spec. Venus is not making an aspect to the Sun. So this is not a time to jump into something risky, even if it sounds like the best idea ever. It's still a time to do investigation, to watch and learn about it. Go find somebody who is knowledgeable. Ask the universe for, to find you a mentor about this or some authority on this before you proceed. Okay, Taurus, you guys are doing this lunar eclipse in your house of relationships. And so there is some sort of decision you're making about a close relationship. That could be your partner or close friend, or maybe this is a business arrangement, some sort of partnership or collaboration you're doing, or maybe your mentor. So some important relationship you're making a decision about. Now, where Saturn is creating the block is elevated up in your chart. And so it says that you may be concerned about what people are going to think or say when you make this decision. And so that is coloring what it is that you want to do. There's also a chance that it is affecting your career in some way. And so maybe it is that you want to move across country for another job and your partner doesn't want to go, or your partner is going off to another job and you don't want to go with. So something about how people see you or your career is the block right now that is causing you to feel powerless about making this decision. And where the Mars and Neptune are helping you out is in your area of friendships and also groups and organizations. And so this means that there are people who have either made this decision before and can give you a framework of how to do it, or there are friends in your life who will support you on this, who will help you through your insecurities about it, your fears about it. They can help you find your path. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, Venus is not making an aspect to Mercury. And so there is a little bit of a disconnect happening. And that is that it looks like you're making decisions about relationships, but not necessarily about somebody you haven't met yet, which I guess makes sense. So it's mostly here that your thoughts are elsewhere. And so even if you're been saying, I really need to meet somebody new, and you're trying to get out there right now, it's not really where the focus is. And so for the next 2 weeks, focus on other things. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, here's where it gets a little complicated because Venus is not making an aspect to Pluto. And that means that you're not really understanding each other. So if this decision is about your love partner, well, then the thing to do is to figure out how you're miscommunicating with each other. What are you saying that your partner is misunderstanding, and vice versa? And so this can take some real effort, and this is where you bring in those friends to kind of help translate what's going on, because sometimes when we're in our own stuff, it is so hard to see our patterns. And so a friend, someone who loves and cares about you, can see and gently tell you that pattern so that you can see it for yourself and then make some changes. Now, when it comes to home and family, Venus is not making an aspect to the sun, but the sun is in your own sign. And so there is a lot of connections and support you're getting from family, but it may be something that, I don't know, that you feel like you have enough of already, so you're wanting a hug and they give you a piece of pie and you already have a whole pie. So it's something where you might feel like, thank you, but that's not what I was asking for. So, but at least they are trying to be supportive, and you can guide them into the things that you need right now, or, that you just tell them that you want the hug and not the pie. So, but this energy it's here, it's there. People are trying to connect with you, but there is a little misconnection happening. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Venus in your house of intuition and your connection to the universe. So you have an opportunity to do some real co-creating now. And this is to send your vision out to the universe of what it is that you want, and use your power that Taurus naturally has to attract the resources that you need. Now, Mercury is also in your second house. It's retrograde now, bringing back a money opportunity that maybe you passed up before, or maybe you had before, but now is just back to give you more money. This can be repeat clients. It could be a job that you had in the past is coming back with an opportunity for you. So there is something familiar about these money opportunities. Now, when it comes to traditional investments and also money from your own business or a family business, Mercury is making a sextile to Jupiter. So you have some real good opportunities to make more money, especially because Mercury's in a money house and, Jupiter is not in a money house. I thought it was. I had to look. But Mercury is in a money house, so I'm sticking with that. So this is a sextile, and so of course you need to initiate the action. And I know sometimes from a Taurus perspective, you believe that the best action is to wait, but in this case, it would be a phone call, email, just something, even if you're reaching out to say hi, just to remind the person, and then suddenly they say, oh yes, I wanted to buy your services, etc. So this is you take the action, and then good things happen. Now, when it comes to your money derived from career, Mercury is not making an aspect to Neptune. However, Neptune's in a money house, Mercury's in a money house. So there is something going on, but it may not all line up this period. So that means that maybe they are talking to you about a raise, maybe they're talking to you about a promotion, or getting more hours, or a new commission schedule, but all of this is going to happen way outside this 2-week period. So they're probably talking to you you about something that's going to happen over the summer or even the fall. And so you don't necessarily want to initiate that conversation now because Mercury will line up. We just need it to be going forward again, and so that you're not hearing the same things over and over and not getting the results. And then when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, or they're highly speculative or highly leveraged. Mercury is retrograde in your house of money. So that is a sign that something is coming back to you to be an opportunity. Now, since this ties in with Jupiter, which rules your resources, that you may have now some resources to put in to a risky investment, and that could be some of your time. Maybe that's someone who's going to help you with a contract or to go over the prospectus, or that you have a little money to invest. And so, of course, with risky investments, we want to be very careful. Jupiter is in your house of protection, and so that does mean if you get blocked, that's not that the website's down or that somebody's in your way. That is your guardian angel stopping you from doing this. So be aware that if you try to move forward on something and you do get blocked, that is somebody up there trying to protect you. Okay, Gemini, you guys are doing this lunar eclipse in your house of daily routines, health, and how you care for yourself. And so the decision that you're needing to make is something about that, like what time you get up, what you eat, how often you exercise, how you are taking care of yourself, and whether you need to, bring in some help in that area. Now, where Saturn is challenging you is in the area of information. And so you might be thinking you cannot find the truth because there's so much information out there that you can study and learn and try all these different things, and it doesn't help because maybe you think you've tried everything, and which is impossible these days. So when somebody says that, I go, well, it's probably not true. But the Saturn is saying there's just so much information out there, and that, I don't have a PhD in this, so how can I gather the truth? And that's where the block is. But Mars and Neptune are in your house of expertise and authority. So that is that either you can become an authority or you can find someone who is truly an authority on this. And that might be a teacher, a doctor, an expert, an author, somebody who has the experience, they have spent their whole life working on this, and so that they can give you the information you're looking for. And the fact is, yes, there's lots and lots of experts out there, but there are people that are going to resonate with your chart, and that is that you may be drawn to that person, and so that could mean there is a positive chart connection. Now, I do want to say that not all the people we're drawn to have a positive chart connection. Sometimes we're drawn to someone from a past life, and that was a difficult connection, but we feel inexplicably, is that the right word? Drawn to that person because of some sort of karma or a past life connection. So, when you feel very drawn to someone, you also have to check with yourself is, do you feel better with the information, or do you feel, more energized after connecting with this person? That would be a sign that this is a positive connection. When it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, Mercury is not making an aspect with Venus. However, the majority of your planets are above the horizon, so you're very easy to be seen, but your head's not really in the game because the moon and that lunar eclipse is below the horizon. And so that is that you are more thinking that you want to be by yourself so that you can puzzle something out, or you're just not feeling up to seeing a lot of people and meeting somebody new. Now, your friends may try to introduce you to someone, but right now you're not really making a connection, and so it would be better just to tell them to wait for a couple of weeks, and then you could have that blind date. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, the energy is much better because Mercury is making a sextile to Jupiter, and so the two of you can be in harmony. It does mean that you need to take a step forward, maybe ask what's going on with them, or tell them what's going on with you, and when you do, then you have some real harmony. Now, when it comes to home and family. It is all about that Mercury retrograde, which is in your own sign. So something is coming back to you where maybe you were dealing with it in the past. Now, I think that this is a fairly positive thing because you are making that lovely sextile to Jupiter. And so maybe this is somebody's coming back for a visit, or there is some sort of opportunity, maybe for a roommate or some money-making thing happening at home, or maybe just some good connections with family right now because of this retrograde bringing someone back into your life. When it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that moon in your 6th house, which does say you need to be looking at what your routines are with money. How are you handling your money on a daily basis, and where are you allocating funds? And so this is, like everybody has something that they don't really have a financial limit on. And so, but if you have multiple things like that, I mean, like maybe you're willing to spend more for organic food, which I think is a good idea. Or maybe you really want the fancier clothes, or you spend a lot on a car, but you can't have everything that it has the no limit. And so this is talking about where the limits are. This is also about how you handle your money on a daily basis, and that is about keeping track. And so this might mean going back to a written budget or using some sort of cash envelope system. And doing things like this will bring you money. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your own business or a family business, the moon is making a square to Saturn. And so there's a lot of activity and opportunities. And that means you need to move forward on this because something is right there. There's money on the table for you to take. And that means maybe something about investments that you need to take action on, maybe taking some profits, or maybe finding something that's at a great price right now so that you can buy it. And with your business, maybe doing some marketing or just calling up people who are prospective customers and closing the deal. When it comes to money derived from career, the moon is making a trine to Mars, plus you have Jupiter and Venus in that house. So this is one of the best opportunities you've had to ask for a raise. Now, if you are looking for a new job, you definitely want to negotiate the salary. Continue to pursue the opportunity, but when it comes right down to that point of accepting, make sure that you ask for more money, because this energy is quite good for bringing you more income, a better commission schedule, or some other perk from work. And then finally, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, or they are highly speculative, having trouble with that word today, speculative, or they are time sensitive, the moon is not making an aspect with Venus, which says be really, really cautious. With this, with the eclipse happening, it can create a lot of volatility in the markets. And then we, of course, have Mercury retrograde also. And so therefore, there's just, a lot of gyrations. So with risky investments, you just want to be extremely sure before you move forward. And that's super hard on a risky investment. So just maybe pass on it for the next 2 weeks. Okay, Cancer, you guys are doing this lunar eclipse in your area of creativity, fertility, and children, also risky investments, which we'll talk about in a second. And so you are making some sort of decision or making some sort of change in these areas. And so this could be that you have a big decision to make about one of your children, or about fertility itself and whether you're adding kids into the family, or you're working on a creative project. And now where you're getting challenged by Saturn is in the area of resources. So you may not feel that you have the energy or the money or just the expertise. Something you feel is lacking, and therefore you are blocked from doing this process. So however, you do have the Mars and Neptune in that house of education and teachers, and so that's where you can find the help, and that is that somebody has done this already before and they can show you the way, either personally or through reading their books or watching their videos, or this is that you are getting some guidance from someone who is a general authority of these things. So this is your route forward. So the challenge with this is that this is quite an emotional placement for you, because this lunar eclipse is in that house of children. And even if this is a creative project, it is something that is near and dear to your heart. And so you don't want to get caught up with this idea that because of the lack of resources that you are blocked. You do want to look and say to yourself, all right, there has to be a way through, and start to visualize that, start to picture the help that you need. And then through that ninth house, Mars and Neptune, the teacher will appear. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, the moon is making a sextile to Pluto. And so there is an opportunity. Plus, Pluto is still in your house of relationships. And so, again, there is an opportunity. So this means that you do want to push yourself forward a little bit on this, because when it's a sextile, you have to take an action, you have to initiate. And that means that you have to communicate with someone, or put your profile out into the world, or engage a matchmaker, or tell your friends that you're willing to be fixed up on a blind date. Something to move this process forward. And generally, this is something that is, a little bit outside your comfort zone. It doesn't have to be huge, but it's more than just sitting and visualizing something. When you do a sextile, it's ideal to take an action out in the world. Now, when it comes to existing relationships in your partnership, the moon is making a square to Saturn. And so there is some sort of contention happening between the two of you, and it needs to be dealt with. But of course, you can deal with it because that moon is making that lovely trine to the Mars-Neptune. So that does mean that there is some way forward, either by changing a belief that you have, or a preconceived notion about something. So, but there could be some sort of discussion happening, or argument over finances, or about some intimate aspect of the relationship. And so you want to deal with that. It also is possible that your partner is really hit by this eclipse and is in a place where they are feeling less balanced. And so then you can help them out. Now, when it comes to home and family, there's a little bit of a disconnect going on because there's no aspect between Moon and Venus. And so that means that people are not really coming together as a unit at home, or that there is some sort of, like, you're waiting for something to happen around the home. Maybe you are expecting that you are going to be moving, but you haven't found the new place, or that you're thinking that your landlord's going to raise your rates, but they don't quite yet. So there's just this little air of anticipation. And so the best thing to do is to see what actions you can take while you still have this unknown factor, or this thing that's unresolved. And so it's the old saying, when fishermen can't fish, they mend their nets. And so this is, what kind of net mending can you do now? So when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from the sun that is in your house of money derived from career, as well as friendships, groups, organizations in the future. And so there is some possibilities for getting some more money from your job. We'll talk about that in a second. But this is also that you pull money out from your connections, like finding your friends and saying to them, hey, if you know somebody you can refer to me, that you're open to that. And so it is not about, just going to all your friends and saying, please buy my stuff, but to see if they will help you meet new people. This is also about networking in general, and so making professional connections, and that might be through LinkedIn or through meetup groups. And then it is about how you're looking at the future. If you are looking at the future from a very closed off, very fearful mindset, then it can be very hard to see new opportunities. But if you realize that in hard times, that's when most of the millionaires and billionaires get minted. This is where they're created, because they're solving problems. And so this is a time where there's more opportunity for entrepreneurship than ever. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, while the sun is not making an aspect to Uranus, they're both in the same sign, and they're both in a money house. So I think that there is some energy happening, but it's going to take a little bit more work than if there was an aspect. And so that is that someone may be dangling some money in front of you, and you have to decide whether you want to take on that project, or you are looking at investments, but it's not a time to really jump in, but more maybe dabble, or do some investigation, reading the prospectuses, looking at the different ways that you can invest in something. There's such a diversified number of ways that you can invest these days, through fractional shares and through co-ops and private investing. Like, there's so many different things you can do these days. So anyway, this says it's not a lock. It's not quite smooth. You're going to have to connect the dots yourself, or just wait till there's a better aspect. I shouldn't say better aspect. Wait until there is an aspect. So, the interesting thing is when you are looking to get more money in your life, you just need an aspect. And if the aspect is difficult, then you have to go through some sort of challenge or feel like you're on a big learning curve. But when there's no aspect, that's when it gets tough, because it's like the money is out here somewhere and it's not reaching your accounts. And that's what's going on now. Now, this energy will line up in the future, but as I said before, because they're in the same sign and in the same house, it would make sense. I shouldn't say they're in the same house. Of course, they're in the same house, but they are in the same sign. And so that does give you a connection there that you can then use to get the money into your accounts. And then when it comes to money derived from career, and so that's like a paycheck, the sun is not making an aspect to Venus. And again, here are the mitigating circumstances. The sun is in a money house and Venus is in your house of career. So this is like you can ask, and then maybe they are implementing this raise outside of this 2-week period, or you're getting a new job and you don't get your paycheck within this 2-week period, that there is some sort of delay on that. So we are seeing some possibilities. Of course, if the energy was lined up, it would be much easier. So if you're not feeling like you want to ask for a raise at this time, it's understandable. However, if you are applying for a new job, do be ready to negotiate for a higher salary, because this is your one opportunity to do that. And so instead of just accepting what they are saying, and it's likely then that they would say, hey, we can't give you that at the moment, but we will consider that again in 3 months or 6 months. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, or they are highly leveraged or time sensitive, the sun is making a trine to Pluto. So this is really good energy for you. Now, this is not a license to jump in, because this is an eclipse, all right? So do be careful. You need to know what you're doing. But if you were thinking about launching a business, or, uploading your novel, or putting your album out into the world, or any of those long-term projects that we do where we're doing a lot of work on spec, this could be a really good time to do it. Now, I will say, don't do it on the exact day of the eclipse. That is a day of no energy. So you would want to either launch before the eclipse on the 16th or after the eclipse. But don't do it on that day. Now, and if it is something that is highly leveraged, or it is very time sensitive, again, be very careful, because eclipse energy can affect the markets in general. And so there can be quick reversals in fortune when eclipses happen, because eclipses cause a pivot. And of course, Mercury is retrograde. And so, that also can kind of muck up the works a bit. So anyway, you have good luck in this area. I would say more so for launching a big project. If you are looking at risky investments, remember that eclipse energy can make things very volatile, so do be careful. Okay, Leo, you guys are doing this lunar eclipse in your area of home and family. This includes your dwelling. So you're making some sort of big decision about where you live, how long you're going to live there, maybe selling your house, or something about the family itself in regards to the dwelling. And so that might mean somebody moving in or somebody moving out, or maybe you have a contentious relationship relationship with someone you live with now. So where we see the challenges to the decisions that you're making about home and family is in your area of relationships. So somebody that is close to you in your life is either disapproving of the decision you're making or has just wants you to go a different direction. This Saturn in this placement also may mean that you're just having trouble deciding, because this is the area of weighing things, like on scales. And so every time you put something in the pro section, the pro column, then you have something in the con column, and it feels like everything is, 6 one way, half dozen another, and you're having trouble deciding. Now, where we see that Mars and Neptune helping you out is in your area of resources, which says you have a myriad of resources for this question that you could help solve the dilemma. And that is, you can ask other people what their advice is. You can go outside the family to do this. But it also says that there are some financial resources that you could gain, and that would help you make this decision. So it's a good idea when you're doing something with resources and it involves Neptune to do some visualization about it before you start. And that would mean making a list of all of the different possibilities, the things that could come to you. So, the things that are beyond just one or two. See if you can come up with 20 different ways you could get help in your situation. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically love relationships, the sun's making a sextile to Jupiter. And so there is an opportunity to meet someone new. And it's interesting because now Jupiter is in a new sign, and so this could mean meeting someone quite different than you've met over the past year. This is also very vibrant energy, and it's a sextile, so it says when you take an action, some really amazing things can happen. So this might be the time to refresh your profile on an online dating site, or put up new pictures, or to ask a friend to fix you up. So because you have really good energy, it's also, this Jupiter is now in that house of spirituality and religion. So you may want to go back to church or your synagogue, or, just start going to regular church services and see who you could meet there. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, the sun's not making an aspect with Uranus. However, they are in the same sign. So there's something where you both feel like you're going in the same direction, but you actually may not be. And so what you just want to keep in mind is that you're not blocking each other. And so just kind of keeping those lines of communication open, and then it's reasonable to be working on the different things, dividing up the tasks, etc. But you need to check in with each other because it's not an automatic connection. When it comes to your home life, though, the sun is making a trine to Pluto, and so there are some really good things happening at home. You might be finishing up some renovations, someone might be moving in, you might find a way to make some money through your home, or that you're just in the flow, like you've decluttered and things are looking good. And so things are really looking better when it comes to home and family. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Mercury, which is retrograde in your house of money derived from career. So this means that a company that you used to work for may have an opening and may even reach out to you and say, do you want to come and work for us again? Or that repeat customers are coming in, and so you are having customers you're familiar with come back to you. It's also possible that there is some sort of work project that you need to go back into to make better, and this is going to lead to more money. So there's a lot of different energy here, especially about returning to something you've done before. And so this might be that you are looking for a job, and so you've already applied at a few companies, they didn't get back to you. Apply to those companies again, first by tweaking your resume or your cover letter, and then reaching out to them again during this retrograde time to see if now there's an opening. Now, if you are actually looking for a job and in negotiations to be hired somewhere else, try to start the job outside of the retrograde period. If you start a job during Mercury retrograde, in a few months you could find that you are dissatisfied with the position, or worse, that they are dissatisfied with your performance. And so this Mercury goes the Mercury goes direct on June 3rd, so consider starting after June 3rd if you are starting a new job. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, Mercury is not making an aspect with Neptune. They are all in money houses though. So there is money out there, but it seems to be not connecting with your accounts at the moment. So that means that payments could be delayed, or that somebody's buying something and you're giving them 30-day or 60-day terms, and so it's well outside this 2-week period. So also be a little careful, because now Mars is with that Neptune, and so that can make for some flights of fancy, like thinking that you've got a big deal going and then having the deal fizzle or actually manifest as much less. So try not to get caught up in the fantasy of it, but stick to the reality of what's really going on. And then pretty soon the energy will line up and the money will come into your account. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, that Mercury is retrograde, and that means that it's time to go back to your supervisor if you haven't had a raise recently and set up a meeting. The sun is elevated in your chart, and it's in a money sign, and soon it's going to be in that house with that Mercury. So everything here says that if you have been put off about a raise in the past, now you can move that forward because it is Mercury retrograde. And it's something too that if you get more money from your job during Mercury retrograde, then the next time Mercury goes retrograde, you are more likely to get additional bonuses or other money from your job or another job that you work. So like, once you do it during a Mercury retrograde, it can happen over and over. And then finally, when it comes to risky investments, and these are defined as anything that takes a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, like a franchise or writing a novel, or anything that's highly leveraged or time sensitive, Mercury is making a sextile to Jupiter. And that means that you have the opportunity to move something forward and make some profits from it. So now Jupiter is in Aries, and it's a much livelier sign, and so there's going to be far more activity. It's going to feel like you need to rush forward, and this just says take an action. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to rush. Jupiter is in the sign of information. It's in the house of information, and Mercury is in the sign of information, and so I think that's the key, is getting enough information, really reading over the contracts, really understanding what you're getting into, and then I think you could do quite well. Okay, Virgo, you guys are doing this lunar eclipse in your area of contracts, thinking process, as well as communication. It also rules siblings and neighbors and stuff like that, so there can be a little disruption in that area. But most of this is that you have a decision to make, and you've probably been mulling this over for some time, or you may be sitting with a contract deciding whether to sign or how to negotiate for what you want, or you're wanting to tell somebody else of a decision you've made. Now, where you're feeling blocked is the Saturn is in the 6th house, and so every time you think about doing this, you either feel tired or a little sick to your stomach, or you just don't feel like you have the energy to follow through on whatever this is. But where Mars and Neptune are coming to the rescue is in your house of relationships, partnerships, and connections, and this means that someone is willing to help you. You just need to ask around and see who's been through this situation before or who has advice for you, instead of keeping this to yourself, which, it's a Scorpio lunar eclipse, so of course that's the inclination. But to reach out to a trusted friend or your partner and talk this through, because communication is necessary, and then you'll find not only do you have the answer, but you have the energy to implement it. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, Mercury is not making an aspect to Saturn, plus Mercury is retrograde. So you may only be thinking about someone you met in the past and wanting that person to transition into your new love. So, but Mercury retrograde and no aspects right now is not giving you the best energy for this. So if you are fixated on someone from the past, you want to make sure that you just step away from that until at least Mercury goes direct, and then you can, give that a try when those two planets line up, which will be pretty soon. On the other hand, what can happen is people from your past who you've said no to, they may be calling you. And right now, because there's no aspect between the Mercury and the Saturn, it just may not click. It didn't click before and it's still not clicking now. And then when it comes to existing love relationships, Mercury's not making an aspect with Neptune. You do have a strong house because Mars and Neptune are there, but because there's no aspect, some of the communication seems to be off, which makes sense because there is that lunar eclipse in your house of communication. So be quite careful when you are talking with your partner, because a miscommunication can cause an argument where there doesn't need to be one. So it's also possible that you're both feeling a little bit tired, and so seeing each other and talking to each other while you're fatigued isn't helping the communication. So maybe need to, find a way to take a break where you're not kind of sniping at each other. So this energy is going to line up in a much more positive way in the future, but right now it's, be careful about miscommunications. Now, when it comes to home and family, Mercury is making a sextile to Jupiter, so we have some very good energy. Jupiter is now in a money house, so maybe you're refinancing, or maybe you're finding a new apartment and it's actually less money than you were expecting, or you're getting some sort of benefit or making some money through the home. It's also possible that everyone's just coming together and as a family and things are going better, that you're supporting each other. This is a sextile, so it does mean that you are initiating the action. So, you are taking the step forward, bringing the olive branch, and then there's more peace and harmony in the family. When it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Venus, which is in a money house. And so this is that you see the way forward to get that money. Now, whether you are wanting to do it or feel you have the energy to do it is another question. So this is the opportunity is right there. And so it's going to take you kind of almost I don't want to say forcing yourself, but to remind yourself that this is your goal, if it is your goal, and to move forward on it. This is not something that's going to be there forever. So if you see an opportunity to make money, at least start in that direction. And then let the momentum carry you. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, you have a great house because Jupiter is there and Venus, which is your money planet. But Venus is not making an aspect with Mars, and so it looks like you are having the promise of money, or that somebody is contracting for your services or they're buying your products, but they are paying outside of this 2-week period. And so this is more that you're gaining sales, but the accounts receivable hasn't received the money yet. So I do feel like there's such strong money opportunities for you in the near future. This time there is more work and you're waiting for the check. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, Venus is not making an aspect with the moon. And of course, that moon is in that area of negotiations. And because it's a lunar eclipse, it can cause some changes or pivots. Now, that Mercury retrograde is in your house of career. And so this could mean that there's some major changes going on in your company that would make it really difficult to ask for a raise at this time. What you could do, because your money ruler is in your house of resources, you might be able to get some discounted stock, or maybe insurance at a lower rate, some perks. But the energy's not lining up right now for you to be asking for a raise. It more says there's changes going on in the company, and so watch for additional things you could get, maybe a promotion or reporting to a new boss or a different work schedule, something like that, and then the money could come later. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, or they're highly leveraged or very time sensitive, Venus is not making an aspect with Saturn. I know you're seeing a trend here. Venus was only making one aspect in this chart, which really means that this is a time overall for you to be working on the back office of things, working to improve your products or services, and in the case of risky investments, to do your research on things, to find out how these work, to gather resources, if you are trying to fund a launch of some sort, to do your GoFundMe page, do your Patreon page, to look at the back office of something, if you're doing a membership website, etc. Whatever your risky investments is, this is where you do the research and build the foundation. And then when all of this lines up again, that's when the profits come. Okay, Libra, you guys are doing this lunar eclipse in your house of money, also possessions and self-worth. And so this is where the change or whatever decision it is that you're trying to make is happening. That means you're making a decision about your money or making a decision about the stuff that you own or how your sense of deserving. And so if you are, struggling with a money decision right now, and that could be of whether to buy something, whether to find ways to earn more money, or to take responsibility for managing your finances, you are getting challenged by that Saturn, which is in your house of risks, and also though kids and creativity. So part of this could be that the Saturn is saying that you want to give more money to your kids, or that your kids need money, but that's leaving you short because you keep giving to them. So when it comes to creativity, you may be wanting to do a creative project, but you're not sure if you can take the risk to do it, or that you just feel that financially that the world is in a more risky place. And so you might be saying to yourself, how can I stick with a job that I don't like, but how can I leave it when we are in these risky times? And so some of this is about, managing your money differently, but also looking at the bigger picture. What are your priorities? What is the most important thing? And so then we look at the Mars Neptune to say, where are you getting help? And that is in your area of work and routines. And so some of this is slow and steady wins the race. And that is, you might be looking at managing your money differently, or looking at if this is some sort of big purchase that you're considering, how can you borrow this item or put off this purchase, until you have more funds. And this is also about, looking at your preparations, like if the Saturn is about financial risk and you're feeling like, with inflation and where the economy is going, that you're at risk, then the Mars Neptune is suggesting shifting your daily routine so that you are in a less risky circumstances. So maybe that is preparing, maybe it's just eating more at home, and so you're not spending money out. Things like that. So that is your key. It also, of course, is your house of work. And so it could mean that you do have to work a job that you're not liking for a little while longer while you establish your finances in a stronger position for the moment. I know eclipses do cause a lot of change. They cause us to pivot. But this can also be a pivot in a decision or a way of thinking versus actually just letting go of something that then causes you to feel like you've put yourself in a riskier position. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, Venus is making a semi-sextile to Uranus, and it's really interesting because in this chart, Venus is only making one aspect. And so that is with this area of new love. And so if you want to meet someone, this is the time to do it. Plus the fact that Venus is now in your house of relationships. So there is an opportunity to make a new connection that actually can become a real love relationship. So you don't necessarily want to miss this. However, it is a semi-sextile, so you might feel a little reticent about doing it when you have so many other things on your plate. So you are doing an aspect. That's helpful. It's not the easiest of aspects, but it is the aspect this time, and that means that if you do take an action and you look for some growth, if you look to get outside of your comfort zone, at least just a smidge, you could have some really good luck when it comes to meeting someone new. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, as I already mentioned before, Venus is not making any other aspects except for that aspect to Uranus. So it is not making an aspect with Mars. However, Jupiter is now in your house of relationships and Venus is there as well. And of course, Venus rules your sign. So this is, there's some positive energy here. While the aspects not forming at the moment can mean that you're just having trouble syncing up your schedules to have a conversation, or, like one of you is traveling, so you're not even, in the same house at the moment. So, but there is some good energy because overall the house has some good energy. It's just going to take a little bit more work to get together to connect because there's not an aspect. And then when we look at home and family, Venus is not making an aspect with Saturn. And so this can mean that the family's just scattered. Everybody's doing whatever they want to do. And so people are not coming together. It also could be there's some differences of opinion about different relationships, like outside relationships, but also about finances. And so, there could be some contention happening. It's difficult to get a consensus right now because this scattered energy, this is going to line up in the future. So if you're trying to get everybody to agree on something, then just wait for a little bit. Now, when it comes to your money, of course, you have the eclipse in this area, so that's going to say that something could change. You have an opportunity that could shift through your thinking or your actions and really change your wealth trajectory. So you can, and that's what eclipses are for. It's that if you're not going the right direction, then the universe closes a door and opens a new one for you. Now you are pulling money from that Pluto, which we've talked about many times, and also that Mars, which figures very prominently in this lunar eclipse. And so Mars is in your house of work, and so it does say the more you work at this, the more money you're going to make. And you're doing a trine to that moon. So the energy is quite easy. So you may be inclined to do the extra work right now anyway. It also says to adjust your daily routines so that you are maybe thinking about money more often, maybe more aware of your spending, maybe looking for better deals and things like that. So the energy here says that if you work at your money, you can make a lot more. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, Venus is not making an aspect with Pluto. However, the Uranus is there and the Sun is there. So you have some good energy, but the energy itself isn't lining up. And so because Venus is in your house of relationships, partnerships, collaborations, and mentors, it's probable that you're just not able to get together over the 2-week period. That, people are promising to pay you, but the check doesn't come quite yet. Or that you are selling lots, but people have time to pay, and so they're not paying yet. So the money is coming in, but it's not reaching your accounts just yet. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, it's an entirely different story. The Sun is making a trine to Pluto, and so this is one of your best opportunities for asking for more money. Now, the Sun is actually in your house of resources, and so this might mean that in lieu of money, they will give you a better schedule, cheaper insurance, a way to buy stock. You might be getting vested. So, but there is more opportunities to be making money through your regular job right now than there has been in a while. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, or they're highly leveraged, or they are time sensitive, Pluto is not making an aspect with Uranus. However, Pluto is making an aspect to Saturn, the co-ruler of that house. And I had to check, and it's a semi-sextile. So now a semi-sextile, you know, if you've listened to me talk about this, is not the easiest of aspects. It is an aspect about being slightly outside of your comfort zone, where you may kind of get caught up in the details of things. You can get a little waylaid by those, and they can take some of the joy out of the process. But if you can shift your thinking to the bigger picture and not get all bogged down in the details, you could make more money than usual in this area. Okay, Scorpio, this is your lunar eclipse. It is in your own sign of Scorpio, and this is part of the Taurus Scorpio eclipses that you're going to be experiencing over the next year and a half. So it is more likely you are being directly hit by this eclipse and the solar eclipse we had 2 weeks ago, and the future eclipses that we're going to be having for the next year and a half. So this is all about shifting your life path, and that is finding out inside what you feel you should be doing or what you want to do, or reading the signs that are external about nudging yourself into the correct direction. So that means that the universe is very busy in your life, closing doors and opening other doors. And so and you may or may not be happy about that, because as Scorpio energy likes a bit of control, it kind of feels a little wonky to have the universe doing all of this stuff and kind of guiding you. So, but if you can see this as co-creating with the universe rather than that the universe is blocking a path that you wanted to go, I think you can move forward much more easily. Now, where you're going to feel the block this time with that Saturn is in the area of home and family. And that means that you might have a very strong idea of what you want to be doing, but you feel that somebody at home is not going to approve. So that is that maybe it's your parents, maybe they're not, in your life on a daily basis. Maybe they have even gone to the other side, but you still are trying to follow their rules. Or that your partner or your kids or somebody in the family is not going to approve of the choices that you're making. So then when we look at where you can gain some help, that is that Mars and Neptune in your house of creativity and risk-taking. And so this says that you are creative enough and innovative enough to find a solution to this. And it may just mean that you need to stop and do some meditation and think this through, and also look at what other creatives have done in a similar situation, and that's going to help catapult you forward. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, I'm going to say this to you every time. Pluto is making a lovely sextile to Neptune. That means new love is there for you. You just need to take that step forward. And so if you are saying to yourself, I can't find anybody, you're the block. You need to shift that thinking, especially now, because now Mars is in that house too, and it's conjunct the Neptune. And so that can really help move you forward into some happy new love relationship. It's making a trine to the eclipse that says make a shift, pivot, do something different, and then love can find you. And you can find love too. Okay, love can find you and you can find love. Now, when it comes to your existing love relationship, Venus is not making an aspect to Pluto. There's planets in the house with Uranus and the Sun, and so the Sun's putting a big spotlight on your partnership right now, but there is something that is out of sync. And so maybe it is that you're just working too much. You both are so busy that you're not coming together and having a conversation. But it's more likely that the changes that you're going through, and you're making such big changes in your life that your partner's having a little trouble keeping up. And so it is, when you make a dramatic change, other people have to adjust. And so give your partner some time to adjust before you start to talk about this. The energy's not syncing up right now, so they may not seem like they're very supportive of this. Just give them some time to get used to the idea. When it comes to home and family, Pluto is not making an aspect to Uranus. However, It is making an aspect to Saturn, and Saturn's the co-ruler of Aquarius, and Saturn is in Aquarius, and it's in that house. So there is some semi-sextile energy, which says if you can go slightly outside your comfort zone, if you can do something a little bit different, you can find some harmony in the family. But in general, it does seem like there's a little bit of chaos going on. There's a little bit of irritations. You might find that you're a little bit more grumpy about what's going on in the home. And it's possible it's just something is breaking, and this thing broke before and now you have to get it fixed again. But if you will embrace this energy and say, okay, I just have to work on this, then everything really harmonizes and there's some growth, because there is an aspect. It's just not the easiest of aspects. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Jupiter, which is now in Aries, at least briefly. And so you might have a million ideas for new projects. You're ready to jump in, and you should. Realize, though, that when Jupiter goes retrograde and starts to back out of the sign of Aries, you're going to need to go back to previous projects and finish those up. And so, one, don't berate yourself for the stop-start that you're going to be doing this year, but also if something is unfinished from the past, know that you are going to go back and finish that up. But if you're feeling enthusiastic about a new money-making idea, or a new job or something like that, then go ahead and full steam ahead, dive into that. So because when Jupiter goes back into Pisces, you will then go back and finish up what you need to finish. Now, when it comes to money from your business or from traditional investments, Jupiter's making a sextile to Mercury. Now, Mercury is retrograde, so it may be bringing back customers or clients you've had before. It also could mean that you are re-looking at some investments. Maybe you passed them up before. Maybe you have a position in these investments and you're looking to update or expand that position. So it's a sextile. It does mean that you need to take a little bit of effort to make this happen, but this is a really good aspect for making profits. And then when it comes to money derived from career, of course, you're doing that similar energy. It's interesting because now Jupiter's in your house of work, so that means that the more work you do, the more money you're going to make. But Mercury is in a money house now, and so that this is going to translate into maybe more commission and maybe a better commission schedule. Maybe you get to a different commission tier. There's also possibly some perks you can get, as well as asking for a raise. This is a sextile, so you have to initiate that conversation. You have to get it scheduled. They're not necessarily going to come to you and make you an offer. That's more of a trine energy. And so look at sitting down with your boss to ask them, how you can make more money. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, or they're highly leveraged or time sensitive, Jupiter is still technically making a conjunction to Neptune. Now it's out of sign, and that does mean that it's a little harder to spot. It's a little harder to put the 2 and 2 together because the two little puzzle pieces don't seem to fit. And you might be tempted to get scissors to cut them to fit, but that's not going to really work. And so it's going to take a little bit more patience and understanding to get things to flow. Now, of course, Jupiter's going to go out of this conjunction and then it will go retrograde and come back into a tight conjunction. So that's going to be good for you in the future. So this is where things are a little bit more loosey-goosey. It's not going to be as easy to get things going, although you're still making the conjunction, so profits can happen. Okay, Sagittarius, you guys are doing this lunar eclipse in your area of hidden things, and that is your subconscious or unconscious reactions. Also the area of compulsion. It is the area of rest, recuperation, psychic ability, and spirituality. And so basically where this pivot is for you, where this change needs to happen, is slowing down and taking a little bit more time for care of your physical self by getting more sleep or recuperating from something, but also being more aligned spiritually, listening to the music of the universe, watching for the signs, really analyzing those things that come in, and then also looking at subconscious habits that you have, your desire to escape from things rather than face them head on. Looking at all of those, these are what is changing in your life. And then when we look at the Saturn and says, what is the obstacle? What is the thing getting in your way? Saturn is in your house of thinking, and that means that is communication from yourself to yourself, your self-talk. That may be negative self-talk that you're doing, but also communicating with negative people or listening to negative news reports. These are putting you into a place where you're having trouble growing and connecting on a spiritual level. And then when we look at the Mars and Neptune and where the help is coming from, that is in your area of home and family. And so that might mean that family members are giving you the space or the permission or facilitating something so you can get the rest and recuperation you need or make a deeper connection spiritually. Or there's something about the home itself. Maybe you have feng shuied the home. Maybe you just have a connection with your home where you just feel safe and where you can meditate, where you can build maybe a spirit's hearth, which is another name for an altar, where you can read sacred texts, where you can do some magic. So this is where you get the help. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, Mars is not making an aspect with Jupiter. However, Jupiter is in that house and Venus is there as well. So it's possible that someone is pursuing you and you feel like you're not ready or you're just missing the cues. It's also possible that you are wanting to go out with someone but they're really busy or they're out of town. So the energy is not quite lining up. It's possible you're going to make that initial connection, but try to have the first date outside this 2-week period when the energies are better. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, Mercury is making a sextile to the Jupiter, and that's really good. Mercury is retrograde in that house, and so if there has been some sort of separation, you may be coming back together. You also may be getting with your sweetheart and talking about a subject that you had discussed in the past and maybe you weren't in agreement and now you are. So there's more of a meeting of the minds, and it's also possible that you're physically closer now, and so any sort of separation or travel you were doing, now you're coming back together. Now when it comes to home and family, Neptune is making a conjunction with Jupiter, and it's interesting because Neptune is in your house of home and family and Jupiter's in your house of children, and so even though they're in different signs and so it's not always going to be obvious how things are harmonious at home. It's like you may have to, kind of think about it a little bit because maybe there's a lot of noise or chaos. Maybe somebody's moving back home because they were in college, or, kids are now in the house more often because they're out of school. Like, it seems like there's a little bit more disruption, but there is more possibilities of happiness and support and connections. And this also does mean that it's possible finally to get something repaired that you've been waiting to get repaired, because this energy is, well, I shouldn't say that because you were making a conjunction before. So you had the possibility, but if you put off getting something repaired, now you do have that window of opportunity to get the repair people there. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Saturn, which figures very prominently in this eclipse. And this is that point of communication. So this is how you communicate, how you talk to yourself. And the words you use to describe things are directly affecting your money. And that is if you are looking at things by asking good questions, like if you look at anything that frustrates you and you ask yourself, is there a business idea here? Is there a money-making opportunity here? Is there a way that I could solve this problem for many people? And those sort of questions can cause you to make money. If, on the other hand, you're asking, why does this always happen to me? Why do I feel buried with this? How can I feel like, or that's not a question. I was struggling with a question. So if you're if you're using words that are about failure or about defeat or pessimistic or catastrophizing a situation, then you are blocking the money. If you use and switch those words to words of optimism, hope, and just looking at possibilities, then the world opens up to you and you have so many opportunities, especially because this Saturn is exactly doing that eclipse energy. So when it comes to money from business or traditional investments, the Saturn's making a square to the moon. So that means the money's right there. It's on the table. Grab that opportunity. That means the client is calling to book an appointment, the customer's coming to buy the products, that there are profits to be made through investments. So it's right there. It's just a matter of finding the time to take the action to secure those profits. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, it's a different story because Venus is not making an aspect with Saturn. In fact, Venus is not making an aspect with any planet except for Uranus, which is highly unusual. And so right now, everybody is very distracted at your job. Maybe your job is expanding and so they're just too busy to talk to you. Maybe it's contracting and so they're not open to getting a raise or something like that. It does show, the sun is in your house of work, so you are working and you're quite busy, but maybe it's a brand new job and you're getting the paycheck outside this 2-week period. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, or they're highly leveraged or time sensitive, you have a good house because Jupiter is there and Venus is there. So you're very enthusiastic about moving forward on something. So now Saturn's making a semi-sextile to Mars, and that is an aspect that says go slightly outside your comfort zone, and that's where the profits are. So this may mean that you need to get some sort of approval from somebody. Maybe they're in the household, maybe this is some sort of contract or agreement and it just needs a little tweak and then it can be signed. Maybe this is that you just need to put the finishing touches on something before you launch. So the Jupiter and Venus there can make you very enthusiastic, but that can also be so exuberant that you get a little careless. So you want to make sure that something is not left unsigned, or that you do take the time to read it through, or that you do those little finishing touches on it so that the launch is very smooth. But overall, you've got some good energy in this area. Okay, Capricorn, you guys are doing this eclipse in your area of friendships, groups, organizations, and the future. And so this is where you're making your decision. So it's possible you have a decision to make about a friendship. It is possible that you are deciding whether to leave a group or organization, or maybe step down from a board position, or maybe take on more responsibility and take a board position, or maybe even start a group. Or this is a decision about your future and what you're going to be doing long term. Maybe you are looking at your life and seeing that every year you're doing kind of the same thing, and so you want to make a change. And where you're getting challenged by this is that Saturn in your area of money and self-worth. And so this is where you might not feel like you have enough money to do what you want to do, or that you don't have the earning capacity to make it happen, or that you're not deserving of the things that you want. And then where you're getting the benefit and the help is that Mars, Neptune in your house of communications. And so this is about thinking things through differently, asking different questions, asking really good questions, and also getting information from others, asking people's advice, seeing what they think, how they dealt with situations that were similar. So this is where you're going to pull in information to help you through the block of, not thinking you have enough money or not thinking you can earn enough money, so that you can go do the things in your future that you want to do. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, Saturn's not making an aspect with Venus. However, the Sun and Uranus are in that house. So it's possible you're meeting someone, but through some circumstances, you're just not coming together for a first date. Like maybe you're talking on the phone or you're texting, but you haven't actually physically met yet. Or you do meet the person and then they fly off to Guam or something because they have business, or, you know, they're on a pleasure trip. So there's something that is keeping you from making a solid connection this time. And so you just want to wait until these two energies line up. Now, when it comes to your existing love relationship, the story is entirely different because the moon is making a square to Saturn. And so there's a great deal of activity going on between you and your partner. Now, this could be over the money that we were discussing, you know, like how much money you're making, could you make more, could it be reallocated, and what you want to do in the future. So this energy could be a little contentious if you don't really act to try to find harmony. So really look for what you have in common, what the basis is of what you're saying and what they're saying, put yourself in their shoes, etc. And that's going to help the two of you really come together much, much closer, because otherwise, as I said, this energy could be a little contentious. Now, when it comes to home and family, Mars is doing a semi-sextile to Saturn. So it's a little bit of energy that's slightly outside your comfort zone. It's interesting because Jupiter's there now and Venus. So maybe you're working on a home project and you don't really know what you're doing. Maybe you're following videos on YouTube, and so you're doing it through trial and error. Or maybe you're hiring someone, but you haven't made some final decisions yet. So it does show that there can be a positive outcome, but you do have to step outside your comfort zone. You have to do something that is a little bit unfamiliar. And this also could be that some children are coming home to stay, you know, now that school is out, maybe they're back from college. And after months of them not being there, now, you know, the energy's all shifted, and that's what feels a little bit uncomfortable. But overall, it's good energy. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Uranus, as well as the Saturn, the co-ruler, which is in your house of money and is figuring very prominently in this eclipse. So the money is all predicated on you making some decisions, and that is to stop and decide something. Now, I know it can be really hard, especially for you, because you have a lot of interests, you're multi-talented, you have experience in a lot of areas, and so it can be hard to figure out a niche to be in or what to decide on. And so this is more about just choosing something and leaning in and working on that for a short period of time and seeing what sort of traction you get. And then perhaps if you can move on then to something else you're quite interested in and put as much time and focus and energy on that as you did the first project. And then again, compare results and see which one is really showing you that it is a viable option. Now, when it comes to money from traditional investments or from your own business, the sun is not making an aspect to Uranus, but there are a few things to talk about, and that is that Pluto is getting very close to this house. And Pluto is about having these big ideas and taking bigger risks and doing something that is quite empowering. So you have that energy that's going to be coming up. You're going to feel it slightly this year, much more next year, and then after that you're going to feel it more and more. So this is the energy where you're going to start to have some big ideas. It's time to write those down. You may not be able to implement them for a bit yet, but you want to keep those safe because they could be really useful in the future. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, that the lunar eclipse energy is hitting that area. So there may be some changes at your job that do cause you to have to rethink where you're working. Maybe they're cutting your hours. Maybe they say no raise for a while. Maybe they're cutting out bonuses. There could be something that is causing you to make a shift over the next 6 months. Now, when we look at the aspect, even though Pluto's not making an aspect to Uranus, it is making a semi-sextile to the co-ruler Saturn. So that indicates that there is something available to you if you'll step outside your comfort zone just a smidge. So that is, look for where you can lean in and grow in some area. So this would be you maybe developing some computer skills or taking a leadership role or standing up in front of the whole office to give a report. So you're stepping up in some area, and that is is paving the way to getting some more money during this period. If you want to wait and see if these energies line up better, they will in the future. But as always with you, with your chart, because these areas are ruled by the slower moving planets, it's necessary for you, when you do get an aspect, to really capitalize on it, because you get a long period of time where you're more working behind the scenes and establishing yourself. So, and right now you're in one of those periods. And then finally, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, or they're highly leveraged or time sensitive, Venus is making a semi-sextile to Uranus. And this is actually a little bit extraordinary because Venus is only making one aspect in this entire chart, and that's unusual. And so it's between two of your money houses. It is a semi-sextile, and we know, we've talked about this before, semi-sextiles mean that to have something happen, you do have to do something that you might find slightly irritating. Now, Uranus is in that house, and so that does say that, you know what you want to work on, but maybe there are family members that are holding you back. Maybe you have some insecurities about it, and you need to figure out what the downsides are, why you're hesitating, to see if this is your intuition talking or if it's just outside your comfort zone. So because it's a risky investment, do be careful. The semi-sextile does not say, go all in. It says get your toes wet. Just, go in really slowly, be cautious. This energy will line up better in the future, but right now it's saying the potential for small wins or to go in a very small position. Okay, Aquarius, you guys are doing this lunar eclipse at the top of your chart in your house of career and reputation. And this means that something could be changing in your career, that perhaps you are getting a new job, perhaps there are some changes in the company itself, and so you're getting a new boss, you're transferring to a new department, maybe there's a promotion opportunity, or you're going from working for someone else to starting a business, or maybe you had a business and now you want to work for somebody else. So we are seeing some changes unfold over the next 6 months, and that does mean some decisions have to be made. Now, where you're getting kind of, waylaid and feeling blocked is that Saturn in your own sign of Aquarius, and that is that sometimes you're feeling not confident, that you don't have the skills that you need, that you don't have the right connections, and so that is this negative self-talk that's going on, that's saying that you're not ready. And the thing to do in this situation, of course, is that Mars and Neptune, which is to understand on a deep level what your value is, what you are offering the company, what you're offering the world. And so if you are believing in that, and that Mars Neptune says you can, when you do, then opportunities open up. So this is not so much about having the skills already, but to know that you can gain the skills. It's not about the experience that you have already. It is that you're willing to get the experience. So this is the willingness and the enthusiasm and just the excitement about doing the job can help you get it. Whereas you may be applying for something that your experience or your education level doesn't necessarily qualify you for. So this is where you're going to take a risk and say, I may not be able to do it at the moment, but I will be able to do it. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, Mercury is not making an aspect with Uranus, and Mercury is retrograde. So it's more likely that you would get together with someone you've dated in the past, an ex or someone you just dated once, rather than meeting somebody brand new. And it's also that you kind of have a little bit of blinders on. You might be thinking about someone from the past, and even if you met somebody new, they would be so much like that person from the past, like same name, same look, same profession, something that it's kind of like going out with that same person. So you're not really doing energy for meeting someone new this time. You will when this energy lines up in the future. And then when it comes to existing love relationships, it's kind of the similar story. The sun's not making an aspect with Uranus. I will say, however, they are in the same sign. So therefore, there is some connection happening, but so it's not like you're on different sides of an issue, but maybe working side by side, but doing different tasks and not really interacting with each other. It's kind of like when like marketing and accounting, or the sales force and R&D, like two different departments not really getting together. And that's kind of what's happening in your relationship. Now, this energy will line up in the future, but right now, if you're trying to get somebody, your partner, not somebody, but your partner on board on something, it's going to be a challenge, and you might want to wait until the energy lines up. Now, when it comes to home and family, it's actually really interesting because Venus is making a semi-sextile to Uranus, and it is the only aspect that Venus is making in this entire chart, and that's unusual. So the one aspect that you need, you've got, but it is just a semi-sextile, which means there is a little bit of work, maybe a little bit of routine or something that's kind of boring or a little bit, on the drudgery side that's going on at home. Maybe it's you're trying to get the family together to do a project and some people are complaining or they're just not paying attention. So the energy here, while it's slightly contentious, if you lean in, you can make get some happy results. But right now, at least there's an aspect. And so that does mean that if you lean in, things can work out. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Neptune, which is conjunct Mars, as well as the Jupiter, which is now in a new sign. So we've got some really interesting energy for your finances. First of all, with that conjunction with Mars, that means that you may be feeling it's time to take some action on some projects. And even if that action is meditating on what your next step is and getting your steps into your calendar, or maybe talking to a friend about, how you're going to go about this so that you can bounce some ideas off this person. But taking some sort of action is going to bring you money. And then the Jupiter, which is in Aries, ruled by that Mars, which is conjunct the Neptune, you see how it's all kind of co-mingled together. That's now going on in your area of communication, thinking process, as well as contracts and agreements. So there could be some sort of contract that you're signing to make more money. You could be making some sort of pact with yourself, or maybe you have a partner, and so you're putting together an agreement. But it's also about how you're talking to yourself and how you're looking at new ideas that are coming in. Are you actually visualizing yourself doing these things, or are you looking at the first thing that is an impediment and saying, well, I guess that's over with? Because this is good energy and you want to capitalize on this at this time. Now, when it comes to traditional investments and money that comes from your business, sorry, I struggled to get that out. Mercury is not making an aspect with Neptune, and Mercury is retrograde. So this is a time where you may be considering trying to do something again, maybe a similar marketing campaign, or go back into investment, and this is not the time to do it. It is better to wait until outside that retrograde period and then start to see what has shifted that would cause going back towards that to be a problem. Now, it is an excellent time to kind of autopsy deals or investment decisions that you have made to see what went right and what went wrong. And that's a little bit of the mental work that can happen with this aspect. But overall, the timing's not right, so you're going to make about the same money as usual. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, you've got some interesting energy because you're making an out-of-sign conjunction between Neptune and Jupiter. And so this means that it may not be an obvious, A goes to B goes to C. It may be something that is an unconventional way that you are making more money. It also may be that you have to suggest some reasons to your boss that are not the usual reasons on why you should get a raise. Now, this aspect, while it's going to separate and not be there for a little bit, Jupiter then will go retrograde, and then this aspect will tighten up again. So this is not necessarily the best time, but let's say over the past few months, you've been listening to me talk about that Neptune conjunct Jupiter and you didn't act on it. You could act on it now, kind of out of the blue. Just sit down with your boss and say, what do I need to do to get more money? But if you have asked and they're working on it, or they seem to be stalling a little bit, you may want to wait a few months until this aspect lines up again and then go after them about it. And then finally, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, and money to get going, they're highly leveraged or very time sensitive. Mercury is not making an aspect with Neptune, and in addition, Mercury is retrograde. So if you are thinking about going back into an investment you had started before, be cautious, because there's no there's no direct way for the money that's out here in the world to get into your accounts. Now, this energy will line up in the future, but it would be better not to start any new projects while Mercury's retrograde anyway, because it's actually retrograde in your house of risky investments. So it can mean that you get a lesson from that risky investment rather than profits. So be super, super cautious if you're already in some sort of investment right now and you're trying to maintain things or gather some profits. This is a time to do lots of investigation, really analyze the data that you're getting, and then adjust your positions if necessary. Okay, Pisces, you guys are doing this eclipse, lunar eclipse, in your area of travel, foreign things, education, legal matters, and belief, your faith. And this is the areas that could change. And so you may be making a decision about whether to go back to school or whether to leave school. You might be making a decision about where you want to live, if that decision includes living outside the country. Or maybe it's about your import-export business, or a very long distance relationship with somebody who's in a foreign country. So it's also a decision about a legal matter, or about how you are dealing with your faith and, the rules that you have for yourself. So where you're getting some challenges is in that Saturn, which is in your house of unconscious things and like nightmares. And so this is where you get blocked by the fear of all of the different things that could happen. It is, there's this little whisper inside of you that says, oh, this bad thing can happen and I don't have luck and all of that. Or this is that you may feel like other people are working against you, but they are unnamed, they're invisible. Not meaning that it doesn't exist. It just means that when something is invisible, it's very hard to fight. So this is where you're feeling blocked. And then where you have the help is Mars in your own sign of Pisces and Neptune in your own sign of Pisces in your area of confidence. And this is just very basic to say, if you take action and you move forward in a confident manner, in the most confidence that you can. You may not feel 100% confident, but maybe you feel confident just about the first part of it. Like, move forward on any of these things, moving outside the country, and it doesn't have to be now, it could be 10 years from now, or dealing with things from foreign countries, deciding what you're going to do about school, deciding what you're going to do about a legal matter. It is about moving forward with confidence in yourself that you can handle this, that you are a person who's learning, growing, you have lots of skills, lots of experience, and you don't have to listen to the little nagging voice of self-doubt inside of you. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, you have a delightful aspect. Moon is making a trine to Neptune and Mars is right there. So you have a lot of positive energy for meeting someone new. Additionally, because the Mars is there, it can act as both you finding someone, but also because this is a trine and Mars is there, they can find you. And that means just put your information out there into the world. Tell the universe you're looking for someone. Tell your friends and family you want to be introduced to someone, and then the world will take care of the rest. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, Mercury is not making an aspect to Neptune, so the energy is a little bit more disconnected, especially because Mercury is in retrograde in your area of home and family, which we'll talk about more in a second. So, but what this can mean is an old argument comes back, or some sort of trigger that you have from childhood or early days, or a long ago previous relationship has cropped up again, and this has little to do with your partner. They may have accidentally stumbled over that trigger, but they weren't necessarily intending to trigger you. And so that can lead, though, to some arguments or some stress between the two of you. Fortunately, there's no aspect, so it's likely you're going to feel something they're not even going to notice, and vice versa. And so, but when you do come together, when this does line up, which will be pretty soon, then it may come out like, 2 weeks ago I was feeling this and you did not say anything. So that's what you have to watch out for, is to be very self-aware at this time, which you normally are because you're Pisces, so you can do this. So, but to be aware that Mercury retrograde is bringing up some old issues for you. So when it comes to home and family, the energy is quite similar because you are doing that Mercury retrograde in that house of home and family, and it's not making an aspect with Neptune. So again, there's something from your past that is coming forth that is causing some issues around the home and family. And so maybe it's thinking about moving again. Maybe you're trying to get some construction done and there are some delays. Maybe you're just listening to arguments in the family and you're not necessarily involved in them, but it's irritating to hear them all. So what's going on over the next 2 weeks is you're not necessarily coming together in a cohesive unit. There's a little bit more chaos, a little bit more of a repetition of stuff that's happened before. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Mars, which is conjunct the Neptune trine the moon, which is the part of this lunar eclipse. So this says there can be a breakthrough. This is like an epiphany. Like it just occurs to you what's been blocking you, what's been in your way, and suddenly you see a way through. So this is something like, if you don't see this immediately, tell the universe that you're looking for it. Tell the universe, I feel blocked in this area. How can I deal with this? Or what is my block? Why are things not happening? And look for it to be quite a personal thing, completely within your power, because the Mars is in your own sign. So this is not, if you're thinking it's something external, it's probably not. It is probably something that you can deal with, and that means you have the power to change it. I also like your second house of money because it has Jupiter now there as well as Venus. And so that is really lucky energy when you're out there making money. Do be a little careful though, because you can really spend a lot of money with this combination. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your own business, Mars is not making an aspect with Venus. And so there is more of an energy of working on your business rather than getting profits right now. The same thing with your investments. You might be looking at some new investments and you're still, reading the prospectus or, getting your account set up. Maybe you're just watching because there's a lot of volatility in the markets when we have eclipses. And then, of course, Mercury retrograde doesn't help with that. So it's possible you're just standing on the sidelines waiting for the energy to calm down. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, Mars is making a semi-sextile with Saturn. So there's a small opportunity here. It's not the easiest of opportunities. It might result in a small raise. Maybe you're getting a small bonus or, just a little bit extra commission. You're having to do something that's a little bit outside your comfort zone, but I think that something may just be stating that you're confident, having the air that you know what you're doing and having people shift because of that. So, there's some good planets in your area of communication, but because this is an eclipse and the aspect you're doing is not super strong, if you feel like skipping this until the aspects line up, that's perfectly okay. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're highly leveraged or time sensitive. Mars is making a trine with the moon. Now, let's clarify here. Trine is wonderful, but the moon is in a lunar eclipse. And so this does say pivot. It says make a change and look at what you're doing and see if the decision that you originally made is still valid. look at whether you should be continuing with the same decision. Now, if you're thinking about doing a big launch, that could be facilitated by this trine. However, don't do it on the exact day of the eclipse. An eclipse energy is no energy. Energy is blocked. So like the moon is in the way of the sun, or in a case of a lunar eclipse, the earth is kind of in the way. So you can launch maybe right after the eclipse or before the eclipse, but don't do it on the day of the eclipse. But otherwise, this trine energy does say there are some opportunities. You might make more money during this time, but keep your eyes open, because when you're in the category of risky investments, it is risky. And so that means you have to be more watchful, more prudent. It means it's not passive. It has to be actively managed. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe and stay tuned, because LaRue wants to say hi.